everyone, welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One vs. Life is Strange podcast. I am one of your hosts, Adnan. My co-host Adam is here. Adam, you here?
I am here. It is 6:30 in the morning in the States, and I am bouncing. Here I am.
Yes, we are bouncing, so we're back for episode 39. Obviously, we dropped a two-part special last 2 weeks, which is episode 38, Side A and Side B, which included an interview with Jonathan Panetta, who is a Life is Strange fan musician, so definitely go and check those out. They're available on podcast services and on YouTube. But as we are here for this episode, as always, I ask you please to drop a subscribe, like, share, turn on notifications, and do the usual YouTube stuff. It helps you keep up to date with our content. We've hit 1,000 subscribers. We might drop back and down and up again, but we're pretty much there now. And a very much big thank you for everyone who's subscribed as well. It's great to hit that milestone after so long. And obviously really deeply appreciate everyone who supported the channel. And also do please subscribe as well, because I did check on our stats as well. 70% of the traffic that comes to this channel isn't subscribed, which is massive compared to what I thought it would be. So if you are tuning in regularly, just drop us a subscribe. It helps us continue our growth and also appeal to people as well. So just as a PSA from me personally. And also, StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. So you get this on YouTube with a video version and Spotify. And then also we're available on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Amazon Music, pretty much everything. So you can access us on there. So without further ado, Adam, you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Oh, are you not ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, I'm ready. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
I think there might be a delay there. But anyway, we'll kick things off with our first piece of news. Very interesting to speak about this after Don't Nod 11 conversation that we had last time. But came out of nowhere. Kind of missed it as well. So this is news from PlayStation Lifestyle, which is Don't Nod Project 12 will be a brand new large-scale action RPG. So we got from the article says Don't Nod has revealed they are developing a brand new large-scale action RPG known internally as Project 12. The self-published game seems to be in the early stages of development, as the developer revealed it will not be released until 2025 at the earliest. A few other details about Project 12 were revealed, although it will be a large-scale game that is quote-unquote richer in terms of game mechanics and allowing players to immerse themselves in even more engaging stories, end quote. Project 12 was mentioned separately to the Vampire IP, so is not believed to be a sequel to that game, nor is it the game being co-developed with Tiny Bull Studios. The good news is that Don't Nod has increased the amount of money available to develop its action RPG thanks to a $35 million investment from Tencent. And this will allow the team to, quote-unquote, step up in terms of production value, end quote. Project 12 is one of the 8 games in progress at the studio. Both Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, and the newly revealed Harmony, The Fall of Reverie, will be released in 2023. Between this year and 2025, the company also intends to release 4 original games, as well as the 2 games they are co-producing with Tiny Bull Studio and Studio Tolima. Project 12 is planned for, quote-unquote, beyond 2025. So, kind of missed that news at first. I'm really surprised I actually missed this news that it was announced. And there's also a press release, which Don't Nod put on their website, which talks about it getting a €46 million capital increase. And in the press releases talk about it there as well, saying Don't Nod, an independent studio that creates, develops and publishes video games, announces today the successful completion of its capital increase with cancellation of the preferential subscription right launched on February 16th, 2023, through an accelerated book building process to the benefit of a specified category of persons for an amount, including share issue premium of approximately €45 million, and the capital increase with cancellation of the preferential subscription right through a public offering via the primary bid platform for individual investors for an amount, including share issue premium, approximately €0.7 million, the quote-unquote fundraising. Oscar Gobert said, and I quote, who's the chief executive officer of Don't Nod, I am very happy with the continuous support of our existing shareholders, and I would like to extend my thanks to the institutional and individual investors for their trust in our development. with the releases in 2023 of 2 new video games and the development of 4 additional original creations and 2 external co-productions. Don't Nod is leveraging the biggest pipeline of games in history. The funds will enable us to step up new potential. The funds raised will enable us to step up our new next growth cycle beyond 2025 in the action RPG segment with strong and proven business potential. And quote, so obviously, and then in what we talked about, a lot of the stuff that was referred to in the article, including obviously Tencent's 35 million euro investment, is allocated 3.6 million new shares to Tencent for that. And obviously, when we talk about share kind of like increase, it's diluting current shareholders, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I might come on to that a little bit later because we'll talk about another piece of news. I don't want to bore you too much if it's not too much interest in financials. But Adam, you want to talk first?
Okay, you said a lot of numbers in the past 2 minutes. Why should I care about the 21% like undercut for? You said 21% below intrinsic value estimate. Why does this matter? Explain to me like I'm 2 years old.
That was our second piece of news.
Oh, I thought you were still reading the value crunch because there was a lot of stock.
We have the press release. This is the press release that they gave us.
Okay, gotcha.
And then the first piece of news, which was the project.
Yes. So I'm just gonna talk about the excitement for the game and not necessarily numbers because. But yeah, so it's interesting to say that, like they say that it's not going to be released until 2025 at the earliest. So we can't even say that like, oh, it's going to be released in a couple of years because we just get to the end of the article and it says Project 12 is planned for beyond 2025. Yeah. So at the earliest, we could see this not at spring 2025, but the earliest I would say is like holiday 2025. But when they say beyond 2025, this thing's getting pushed. We might not see it till like spring 2027. Like honestly, because when they give this much scale and this sort of press release, and when Tencent's giving them $35 million as an investment, which in games industry is not that much. Like it's not terribly high in the games industry. So keep that in mind. But at the same time, Don't Nod is reaching for the stars. So with this sort of game where richer in terms of game mechanics and allowing players to immerse themselves in even more engaging stories, right? So what I'm starting to see is that maybe this is a lot like branching paths, almost not quite, but almost like Octopath, where it's going in 8 different journeys, 8 different paths. This could be like engaging in different stories, more engaging stories. So there's a lot to say about this. And we don't know anything other than it's called Project 12, which what is that about? So we don't know anything, but what we do know is that this is a very large scale game. It is what we do know. It's not Vampire and it's not by Tiny Bull. So we have more of elimination rather than information. So we have the elimination that it's not coming out this year. We're not going to see anything of it this year. We're not going to see anything of it next year. We know now it's not Vampire. We know now it's not Tiny Bull. What we do know is you're not going to see this game for a very long time. Yeah, you're not going to see anything. At the earliest, you're going to see a trailer of it for the summer of 2025. You're going to see a trailer of it in summer 2025. That's the earliest. That's huge.
No, you make a lot of interesting points. I'm kind of surprised that it's obviously part of the news has to come out with obviously Tencent taking a larger stake in Don't Nod. Tencent has a large stake in Don't Nod already, which is to kind of take into consideration. So as Adam said, like 35 million euros isn't necessarily the hugest investment, especially in terms of video game size, but for Don't Nod relatively it is quite big. And also again, it strengthens Tencent's position. What's that? Sorry?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't say anything. No.
Oh, sorry. I thought you did. With this, it strengthens Tencent's position in the company a bit more, gives them more shares. And then generally as well, like I think, as you said, I think it's going to be a bigger scale ambition game. It's not going to be a Detroit Become Human by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes.
Because like that is bankrolled by Sony. It's a massive blockbuster funding, but I think it's going to be a little bit further down in terms of scale, and I think it's going to be a bit more ambitious than the other games they made. Just
to clarify, because when I said like 35 million isn't too much in the games industry, Horizon Forbidden West, that budget was 110 million euros. That was 110. So put that to scale. It doesn't necessarily mean more dollars means better game. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but Forbidden West was a pretty large game, really well funded, and even 110. Like, I'm surprised it was that low. I thought we were doing like 200 million for that game because it was such a highly praised game. But yeah, let's even look at just even Elden Ring, right? Just looking at that budget. How much did it cost? Around 20. Okay, so I'm stupid. I'm wrong. The standard game budget is around $25 to $40 million. So I'm stupid. So that's okay. It's okay that I'm stupid, but it is what it is. Now I don't see necessarily the budget for Elden Ring right now.
It was a Japanese made game, wasn't it?
It is Japanese. Yes, it's from South. Oh, here we go. We have reached 100 million to 200 million of production of Elden Ring. So, yeah. So the average cost. So 35 million is around the average cost for a game. So it's pretty average. So it's not too low, but it's not too high either. So you got your average game here. So it's going to be like in the set standards of what we know, which is crazy to think about. That $35 million is kind of like average for a AA game. That's your average budget, which is insane to think about. It's insane. It's insane.
No, you're right. This is why they keep saying that they keep trying to like increase the intrinsic value of how much they're selling games at like retail to kind of like make up for the footfall. That's why you're getting like video games at like a longer period of releases, because like obviously like with Horizon, it's a blockbuster game. So they're going to like pitch it and like try and make as much humanly money as possible. So yeah, as you said, I don't think
like that's what I was going to say. Like it's why you're seeing that Tears of the Kingdom is now $70.
Yeah, and that's caught a lot of people's attention quite badly as well. But
yeah, unfortunately, but it's the games costs are rising. It costs $35 million to make a game. So to make a $70 game, I bought Callisto Protocol day one for $70. And I love the game. I love Callisto Protocol. But it is what it is. Like games are going to cost more because games cost more to make.
Yeah, very true. And I think, but at the same time, I think like there's too many liberties being taken with like how much they're putting into game development as well. They need to streamline it and bring them back almost like a generation, because it doesn't need to be as overly spectacular as some games. Like look at Valhalla, Assassin's Creed. Look how long it is. I've not even played it, but I've seen how long it is with the amount of content. Don't need to be that long. You're wasting a lot of time. And
it's a big waste of time. Huge waste of time.
But on this news though, it's very interesting because this, as you said, like it gives a lot of weight in terms of what we know about the studio, where it's going, and also its pipeline of games. So, for example, as well, like we know it's not Vampire now, so we can take that out of the equation. Right. I don't think Vampire's any of the 8 games that they're working on.
No, especially
after Banishers, I don't think it's going to be like that. So that's completely shelved. It might come back in the future. For me, it's not part of the equation now for the 8 games that we have. It's obviously not any of the games that they collaborated with Tiny Bull or what's the other studio called now? Tiny Bull and Studio Tolima. So it's not with any of them. I can kind of see that's what they publish. Well, Don't Not 11 is part of like it has just been absorbed in something else. Like this is the same thing with this because it's Project 12, so it's no different from Don't Not 11.
Also, a commenter made a good point last episode when we were talking about Don't Not 11. They said that Don't Not 11 was the team behind. What did they say? Did they say Tell Me Why, or did they say the other game that I just replayed and I just can't remember the name of it? It's set in West Virginia.
I don't think they did say it's a team behind the game.
Yeah, they said it was possibly. So let me just go on. Let me give credit where credit's due. And then I tried to fact check this, and I couldn't find any information about Don't Not 11, but they said that they were.
I did some research after we finished recording just to double check. Don't Not 11 is just a division in the company. So it could be like if I'm Ubisoft and you could become Studio 12 and you start making work on Assassin's Creed games. So it's not necessarily like anything huge.
Twin Mirror is
right.
Sorry. So this comes from a commenter that says the studio subsequently acquired Don't Not 11 and has absorbed operations in June 2018 from the wiki, which I tried to look up the wiki and I couldn't find anything about that. And I think they're full part. I think they're now full part of Don't Not, and they are the team behind Twin Mirror, which I couldn't find that information either, that they were the team behind Don't Not. I mean, if this person's putting in information, I mean, that's more than I could find, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's true or not. But yeah, it just says Don't Not. I don't know.
It's just a name for the internal division. I imagine like every team that's working at Don't Not now is code named after something, whether it's like Project 12, 13, 14. They'll even like Montreal as well. Montreal's the only exception because it's based in Canada, but they're probably a project in themselves.
Yes.
It's just part of the thingy. So yeah, obviously this game is not going to be any of the ones that they publish with the other studios. Those studios are very small as well. Like we know what Don't Not has been working on with, like, you know, with Gerda, for example. So the project's not going to be huge at that. But obviously, I think the big thing as well is that it's not coming out until 2025 at the earliest. That's very early, obviously.
Earliest.
It could be pushed back, as Adam said, into 2025, 2026, 2027. But this gives you for me, it gives you a bit more of a clear timeline of the games that we're getting. Because obviously we have Harmony coming in 2023. We have Banishers coming in 2023. And then you have the rest of the game. You have this one at 2025. So you have a checkpoint for where this game's going to come in. Then it kind of gives you a scope of where other games are going to be. So for me, for example, I expect Montreal's game to be in 2024 now. That'll be one of the major hitters. And then I think obviously another game will come out in 2024. They'll get 2 games out in that period. So I think it gives you clear indications of like where the studio's going in terms of when something's getting released and a more clearer timeline. Everything seems to be materializing a bit more for us to see where Don't Know is going in the future.
Yeah, but, no, I agree.
Yeah, but it seems like this is more kind of catered to what Don't Know has been doing recently. And I think it's kind of like the next evolution sense, because I think in here, the quote says, richer in terms of game mechanics and allowing players to immerse themselves in even more engaging stories. So obviously keeping the narrative core at the heart of what they've done with the other games that they've made, but also kind of like, as I said, going down the Detroit route, making it more comprehensive gameplay, like kind of giving people a bit more hands-on, meatier experience. Like when you look at Banishers, it's like, oh yeah, we can play the gameplay. And I think we'll talk about gameplay in a little bit, obviously, with one of our other topics. But it seems to be a bit more of an ambitious project, and this is a big part of Don't Know as well, to become a bigger publisher. Like it's an interesting position where the studios are at the minute. Like it really is. Like I kind of find it so interesting, like where we're sitting right now talking about Don't Know.
Yeah.
Like compared to where the studio was founded, like it's kind of like it's you know, history of Remember Me, and then kind of almost like going to like levels of bankruptcy because of like how badly that commercially failed, and then kind of like bouncing back and going into Life is Strange and having huge success, and then seeing games come out like Vampire getting more royalties, and then seeing kind of a little bit of a blip period with Twin Mirror and not hitting the kind of strides they're doing, then kind of rebranding, changing like names, changing the name structure of it that has, and then having a Montreal division that spawns up, and then having like all these games in the pipeline, publishing games. It's a big transitional point for Don't Know. It's a huge transitional point. It's like all of this has to really pay off in the end as well. So there's a high expectation that have been placed on the studio.
Yeah, honestly. But we will see. We will see. We won't know until 2027.
Yeah, as I said, I think if anything, the most certain thing that makes me feel reassured is the fact that they have experience in action RPG now, and more so than anything else. It seems to be like that's good for them as well. So it's like this project's going to kind of be like hopefully the next really ambitious thing that they do. Not saying that anything else isn't ambitious that they do, but like ambitious on the larger scale of things. Like we're talking about, like, you know, hopefully on like an Assassin's Creed kind of level. Maybe not as big because obviously the budget's going to be a lot bigger for that game, but that kind of ambition.
Oh yeah, yeah. But we shall see. I can't say anything about this game because like we don't know anything. Like we just know we don't know anything. We just know what it's not. You know, It's kind of crazy to think about that. Like we have no idea. We have no idea, like even the time. Like this is like the setting of this game. Like, is it feudal Japan? Is it colonial America? Who knows? Like we know nothing. But what we do know is that the Don't Know Montreal game takes place in Philadelphia in the 90s. We do know that for a fact.
No, that's what you know. That's what your assumption
based
is.
Based on my own intuition and clairvoyance and magic.
It is interesting because, as you said, like even with Montreal's game, we don't know much about it. We just know like the one or two teasers they've done. So it's like all their projects seem to be like masked in like a lot of mystique at the minute, except for obviously Harmony and Vanishes. But these are all kind of like we'll have to wait till things trickle out. So yeah, nonetheless, I'm excited. I like to see what they do. I like it's a big step forward as a company. I've had my reservations about Tencent, as I've repeatedly said, but that's in itself for a different conversation. Adam,
we shall
go for the next piece of news.
I will let you take over the second piece of news. Yes.
Right. Okay. So just to let me preface this as well, I'm not going to bore you. I don't want to bore you because this is more my kind of like intrigue of things. And it's going to be a really dry conversation as well. And even Adam was like, I can't believe this is a topic, but I kind of want to bring it up because it links with the first piece of news. It's also what I said repeatedly on the podcast, like a couple of times when we were talking about Don't Nod. We were talking about financial statements and everything else. And I even said like where the company goes going forward. And this kind of ties in obviously with them revealing this RPG game that they're going to be working on and getting out in 2025. There's an article from Simply Wall Street, and they're saying that they think that Don't Nod Entertainment shares could be valued 21% below that intrinsic value estimation. So in here, they're crunching the number. I'm not going to read the specifics. There's too much stuff in there. If you don't know anything about finances, it's going to kind of like it'll blow your mind and it'll just be a really dry conversation. So I kind of wanted to use this as kind of a topic of both a topic and a news segment that we can kind of talk about. But to kind of give you an insight on it, the article was published on the February 19th. And at the time, Don't Nod's value of stocks were trading at 10.30 euros. They think that's 20% undervalued for where the company is meant to be. They think a fair value on the company's stock price is $13.09. $13.09. I don't know what the actual euros. Yeah,
13 euros and 9 pence. Or
they don't use pence there.
I don't know.
It's euros, isn't it? That's what I mean. That's why I kind of got like caught up a little bit. I don't. You know. 13.09, I think, in euros. That's what they think that the about right value is on the stock.
Yes.
So they think that, and like just to kind of give you a breakdown. So they think that they did like an analysis on it. It's a SWOT analysis from Simply Wall Street. They thought, for example, the strength of the company is debt is not viewed as a risk. So the company is not in debt heavily, or like you have to worry about them potentially going to bankruptcy or anything. So if you're like kind of investing, then you're all right. Just to reiterate as well, one more thing in between this. I am not a financial advisor. Adam is not a financial advisor. Do not go and put all your money into Don't Nod thinking that this is a good investment. Do your research if you want to invest in Don't Nod. I've been thinking about it myself, but that's more about me learning if I actually think the company is going to go where I think it's going to be. So do your own research. This is not a PSA of go and invest in Don't Nod because you're going to make a fortune in a couple of years.
Yes,
just to reiterate
in
that.
Oreos instead.
I don't know if you made much money from that, but anyway. So that was one of the strengths with the debt. Here's another one, which is a weakness. Shareholders have been diluted in the past year, as we just spoke about on the previous segment, where I said about Tencent getting issued more shares that it had collected, and then it also talked about them issuing more shares. They're basically diluting you as a shareholder. If you own shares in Don't Nod, your shares are getting diluted, so the value is coming down because they're trying to raise capital to finance all these projects. So you basically become not less significant. You'll lose the value of what your shares are. They're not going to be as important, but there are caveats. So, for example, Don't Nod can buy its shares back in the future. It can give you a dividend, for example. It'll pay you to hold the shares. These are things that it can do in the future if it has a lot of money on cash flow. So it can basically be like, we'll give back to the shareholders. In itself, that's it. Opportunity, which is a blue one, which is it says expected to break even this year. Break even next year, not this year, next year. So it's expecting Don't Nod to break even in terms of its money. Important to know that as well, as we've spoken about before with its royalties. Big royalties came from Vampire, from Life is Strange. and this pipeline of games is going to be a big changing point for Don't Nod as well. Has sufficient cash runaway for more than 3 years based on current free cash flows, making a lot of money, keeping money as well. Big investments from Tencent, so again, it's all right. Trading below our estimate of fair value by more than 20%, so Wall Street thinks that Simply Wall Street thinks it's below 20%. And then in there as well, they have a threat, which is revenue is forecast to decrease over the next 2 years. So that's a big one. Like, so imagine, for example, revenue will come down for, like, example, Life is Strange royalties might start coming down a little bit. Vampire royalties might come down a little bit. Don't Nod is spending a lot of money because it's financing projects, it's financing, it's publishing, so it's not necessarily bringing in loads of revenues, it's trying to grow as a company. So I wanted to bring this up because I said this to Adam, and I've repeatedly mentioned in the podcast before. I said, like, could you see Don't Nod become the next kind of like level of like a Ubisoft or a Quantic Dream or something that's bigger as a studio? Could its stock value increasing like massively? I think, for example, like for context, Activision shares were like $20, I think less than that, maybe like $10 or $15 in 2011. And they are trading currently at about $77. And then a couple of years ago, they were about $100+. So you imagine if you put a stake in Activision, you would have made a massive amount of money. I think the same with EA and Ubisoft as well. You would have made a lot of money because they've just become behemoth powerhouses in terms of publishers. So my conversation with Adam was going to be like, can we see Don't Nod really be the next kind of like big publisher to emerge? Like, we have this kind of like stronghold. We have Take-Two Interactive, we have Activision, we have EA, we have like loads of publishers that are kind of there. And I think it's been a while since we've seen like a publisher emerge and kind of become like a new figure in the kind of industry. And I think, like, in itself, I've always said this before, I'm kind of like a little bit, I don't think Don't Nod's going to be independent for a long time, personally. I think that they're independent for the time being. I think Tencent could buy a bigger stake. I wouldn't be surprised if Saudi Arabia tries to buy a bigger stake in the company or tries to buy a stake in the company. They've done it with Nintendo. They own a stake in Nintendo, if you don't know. So I think like there's a lot of like, opportunities for mergers or acquisitions or anything like that. I don't think any company's protected from that. Obviously, we know about the Activision deal, for example. But I kind of wanted to ask you about him. So as I said, I don't want that to be a really boring subject, but I kind of wanted to ask you, do you think that Don't Nod could kind of grow the way that these guys think they can, and like Simply Wall Street, where it's like they can become a bigger company and is potentially undervalued for where it's at right now?
I like turtles.
Let's move on to the next news topic then.
I think they
I'm
always
asking
have...
from a finance perspective, Adam. I'm asking you as a we do like almost a reflection on that other topic we did where we like look forward into the future for like 10 years in Life is Strange.
Yes, I think that's where their goal is. Whether or not they're going to get there is a different question. Because again, we have to look at someone like Ubisoft who. Okay, because I wasn't really aware of the games industry back in the day when Ubisoft was first coming out. But, from what I've researched, not lived through it. From what I researched, Ubisoft was kind of in the same boat early in the days. Like when we were talking about like the 90s, like they were kind of a smaller developer. They were in the level of Don't Nod where they are kind of right now. And now they're big, mega, like worldwide kind of corporations. I mean, this is why I believe in investing in small business, is because I want more competition in the capitalistic marketplace. Because if we only go in corporations, right, if we only buy books from Barnes and Nobles instead of your local bookstore, then Barnes and Noble is going to be the only monopoly on that. So I think we need to be investing in small so that it can actually potentially grow into big mega, so that we can have more competition. So I think that's where their goal is. And like I said, Ubisoft started out small. Activision started out small. All these companies will always start out small, but if they have the right business plan, if they have the right funding, if they have the right people behind them that can take them on the path, which sounds like Don't Nod knows what they're doing right now, or at least has a pretty solid business plan. I think if we're talking about when they're going to get to the maybe half the size of Ubisoft, 5-10 years probably, and we could see that, because 5 years from now was at 2028 and this big game comes out, right, that they're talking about. They have 8 games under the belts by that point. They have this large game under the belt. Wait another year, maybe even 2 more years after that game comes out. They could be a big mega corporation to half the size of Ubisoft's if they play their cards right.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. I think, like, as you said, the small investment of this is kind of like looking at an investment opportunity if you believe in the Don't Nod project. I mean, that's the kind of first thing that you have to ask yourself is, like, do you believe in the... Some of the goals that I've always kind of like learned from just like investing myself like recently is like one of the things that you have to ask is, one, do you see the company stick around in 10 years? That's the big question to start with. Is it going to still be here in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
What's that, sorry?
I mean, that's any business, you know, like restaurants, especially. Like we're not talking about, like, I'm not comparing restaurants to video game companies, but, you know, restaurants only last, you know, what they failed in the first 5 years. Is that the thing? It's like 2 years.
It's usually that.
Like
yeah, it's very accurate.
Yeah. A restaurant, like the opening, average restaurant will shut down between 2 and 5 years because, you know, things happen, costs happen. Rarely will a restaurant last beyond 10 years. They'll last to even get into the 10th year. I've had the pleasure of working in a restaurant that's lasted 12 years. Like they were like up and coming. And I worked with them for 3 years, 2 years, something like that. So I saw the bouts and I saw how much they fought for it. But it takes a battle to get a restaurant past 5 years. Now, a video game company, you know, where all of your assets come on a singular product that takes, you know, 3 to 5 years to produce, at least with restaurants, it has many products that takes 5 minutes to make. It's like, oh, we rely on pizza. Pizza takes, you know, 15, 30 minutes, bang. Whereas video game companies, you have the one product that takes about 3 to 5 years to produce. You got to understand that, like, when we ask, like, will Don't Nod last to 10 years, it's a high risk. It's a high risk because video game companies are shutting down before our very eyes. Crossfire X is shutting down their servers now because live service games aren't a thing anymore, or at least they are a thing, but people are starting to catch on. They're like, hey, this is a ripoff. So it is what it is. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Really don't know. I hope so.
I think you make a good point with that. And also, like, when you look at Ubisoft and EA and some of the other companies, like, they make a lot of money off microtransactions. For example, like, Don't Nod's money is coming through game releases at the minute. Like, there's kind of like the game releases and the royalties. Like, off the top of my head, without looking at their books, like, they're the kind of two ones that I see where it's like, that's the cash flow. But with, like, EA, for example, like, Ultimate Team or, like, the FIFA games and the Madden and, like, the microtransactions just make such a huge part of its cash flow. It's going to be huge for that. And then, obviously, like, in itself, like, again, not to bore you with finances, but, like, you know, EA's stock took a bit of a hit in its last earnings. Other companies have been taking a bit of a hit. Same with, like, Nintendo, Take-Two, like, they're kind of worried about what happens with the industry going forward. So yeah, like, the companies like Take-Two, EA, Activision, like, they've taken a hit on their stocks recently. Like, investors are worried about what's happening this year. Obviously, we know, like, a recession's happening, or it's going to happen, or it's going to, they don't know if it's going to be more severe or if it's less severe. They're still kind of in, like, a limbo territory. So it's kind of like, these are factors that are going to come into it. So it's not as easy as, like, looking at 10 years ahead and being like, Don't Know it's going to be massive. It's going to keep growing. It's going to happen. All kinds of obstacles could happen, and no pun intended with obstacles, obviously, with Life is Strange reference. But, like,
yeah.
But I kind of like it's about anything. Like Adam said, that game in 2025 could be like, whoosh, and send Don't Know into a next stratosphere because it could be the next Assassin's Creed-esque game. Then Don't Know could make a sequel and put microtransactions in it. It becomes a blockbuster hit. They can take a 35 million euro investment from Tencent and instead make a 70 million euro game because they know it's that big.
I mean, that's what I don't. I was even going to say, like, look at Bethesda because, you know, Oblivion came out. Like, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and that was pretty niche. It was really popular. I loved Oblivion when it came out, but it was still niche. But once Skyrim came out, it was just like full sales ahead, and now everybody's looking forward to Starfield because of Skyrim. You know what I mean? Yeah. So not to say that Bethesda was like small cookies. Yeah, exactly. Like it was the one game that kind of pushed them into the main stratosphere of the games industry. Again, not to say that Bethesda was small or like small potatoes when Oblivion came out, but relatively they were pretty niche in the games industry. But now Skyrim comes out, and now like everybody and their grandmothers want to play Starfield, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you said it off podcast to me. We were talking about the Activision deal. Me and Adam were just talking about it, and Adam said, like, he's like, as if Microsoft are not going for that deal just for Call of Duty. And I was like, I was like, you know, the king part of the division with obviously Candy Crush is a big part, but like, it is Call of Duty. It's like Call of Duty taking
Call of Duty.
It's like, it's just massive, isn't it? It's like, it's such a big part of like that acquisition. Same with like, obviously with Microsoft taking over Bethesda, like, you know, like look at the games that they're taking. Some of the big ones, they're like, we want those. It's like, we're not looking for the little mini ones. We're going for the big hitters. And I think like that's kind of the thing with like Don't Nod. Don't Nod doesn't really have anything at the minute. And that's not in a disrespectful way. It doesn't have, it has kind of like start from the beginning, because like they don't own Life is Strange. They don't own the IP. They only get royalties from it. Twin Mirror wasn't as successful as they'd hoped for. Tell Me Why was published with Microsoft. Microsoft owns the IP. Harmony is that first kind of game that's coming out this year. That's from this new pipeline of games. Banishes is owned by Focus. So it's like they don't have the royalties like that a Ubisoft or an Activision or a Take-Two own. So they don't own these kind of big hits like, oh, let's put a BioShock out from Take-Two, or let's put an Assassin's Creed out from Ubisoft. So it's like, this is the issue big with like, Don't Know. You need to look at it and be like, can I see in the next 10 years that something happens where it's like this rolls over like this? For example, those chairs could go from $10 when they were like in the article to €50, €80, depending on what happens. Like it could be all depending on growth. Like we do not know what actually happens at this point. And obviously that, as I said, those kind of points I was talking about with like investing. The other one is like, can you pay a fair share value for it right now? Sometimes you might have to pay more because the company is just already big as it is, i.e. Microsoft, Apple, etc. And they don't really necessarily have like huge growth potential, but like this company has growth potential. This is why I look at it, Don't Know. It's like growth could be a big thing for it, and I think it is going to be big for it. Like look at the pipeline of games, the revenue could potentially bring in. So yeah, it was an interesting piece of news. As I said, I don't really want to bore it because I don't want to bore you with like really specific financial details and be like talking about and droning on. And Adam really was like looking at me, was like, I'll let you lead this news. I was like, yeah, don't worry. It's like, it's not going to be done in the way that you think it's going to be. I think it's just, I want to frame around the conversation like, could you see Don't Nod become a big publisher in the next couple of years?
Yeah.
This is a hard one for me to personally answer, just off the top of my head, because there's too much inherent bias with me. So like this is why, for example, I warned you about the finances of like, don't go off and invest in this because I'm saying that, oh, it's 20% undervalued. It might not be. It might struggle in the next 5 years. It might not do anywhere near as much as we think it could do. I'd be looking at myself thinking I might invest in Don't Know because I want to like see as that it could potentially be the next publisher. Still, I have to kind of be careful with like my heart talking rather than my brain. I think it could become a publisher. I don't know how well. I think it could become a medium-sized publisher. Could it become a Square Enix or a Ubisoft or an Activision? That's where the verdict is out, because that involves big IPs. Big IPs that will sell massively, and it's going to have to bring in loads of revenue with it. And I think the only other caveat I have is that Don't Nod for me seems like a company that's ripe for an acquisition. So like same way that Sony has bought Bungie, or you know Microsoft has bought another company, I think it could be a takeover target for a bigger company. Yes, I can't rule that out, especially with like Tencent floating around as well. I think Tencent will keep increasing its stake in Don't Nod, and massively so. Got a lot of issues with Tencent myself personally. I've spoken about on this podcast before. Especially with Chinese, massive companies that are investing in Western games and everything else like that, and I have the same issue with Saudi Arabia investing in Nintendo. But I think like that's my only thing with it. I think like yes, it can. It hopefully will become a big publisher and a successful publisher in the next 5-10 years. Maybe probably 10 years is more accurate. I think, as you said, I think that's the better gauge to go off it. If anything, the next 10 years. But then I can also see it having a lot of hurdles to face in the next couple of years in terms of like games that don't sell well, games that might underperform. Not to mention then also being an acquisition target. And I think they're the kind of like the signs I've got at the minute. Like they're not in debt. They've not got a huge debt. They've not got anything that's really like red flag concerning where I'm sitting here like Vicky, oh, maybe Don't Know doesn't exist in the next 10, 15 years. But yeah, a lot of things could go bad, but a lot of things could go good. They're in a good position though as a studio. They're in the position of growth and expansion. I think if they play their cards right as they have been doing so far, yes, sky's the limit.
Oh yeah, but we shall see. It's a we shall see situation. Yeah.
So yeah, if you are stuck with us beyond this boring financial part, I'm very grateful for that. Yeah. Because Adam almost signed off before we even got on here. So we will shift gears here. So it's been a while since we've talked about Deck 9, Adam. And I think this is the first time they've come back into the conversation. And we're going to move into The Expanse, a Telltale series. Yes. Nearly 10 minutes of gameplay with developer commentary came out. So this was on the 21st of February from the article I got from WCCF Tech. They report, after a long silence following the announcement at the Game Awards 2021, Telltale Games and Deck 9 have resurfaced The Expanse, a Telltale series with a gameplay trailer shown at IGN Fan Fest. If that wasn't enough for you, they've also published nearly 10 minutes of new gameplay with developer commentary from Telltale's VP of Story Development, Zach Garris. Zach Garris is the director on Life is Strange True Colors, for context, and then Deck 9's game director, Stephen Frost. Stephen Frost is a very nice person. You should follow Stephen Frost on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Gives you a lot of great insight onto the thing. So this is quotes from Frost that WCCF Tech has transcribed. They put, Frost explained, "This is a Telltale game, so we're really trying to learn into the character-first storytelling. And we also wanted to expand it a bit and make sure that when we're exploring, we're using things like zero-G. Then we have the cinematics that you've come to know and love from Deck 9's history of making narrative games and trying to have that Telltale feel to it, that when we're finding these things, we're seamlessly blending them. And a part of that is also going to include really difficult choices." End quote. I thought it was the same quote, but anyway. The footage shows protagonist Kamina Drummer, played by actress Cara G, the same one as the TV show. I also believe that's Erica Mori's motion capture that we saw as well. I believe so. Exploring a fairly large space in 3 axes, which the developer said is unique for the narrative adventure genre. Moreover, Frost said items found during scavenging runs would affect relationships. Frost said, and I quote, "It's a lot of fun. It also allows us to continue the storytelling by interacting with things in the environment. So we're jumping from different parts of ship remains. We're finding things in the environment, and our crew is commenting on the things that we're finding. I love that. So every part of the gameplay, the exploration, the object discovery and acquisition, it's always going to come back. It's always going come back to character." It's part of the transcribing part. Anyway, it comes back to character, and it's so important, in fact, in the exploration, that there are items that will completely shift your relationship with characters if you find them and bring them back to your crew. There are items that affect the rapport and relationship and affect the ending of the game. So exploration in the space with a cool zero-G mechanic is really important to storytelling, and it's just fun." End quote. So yes, the Expanse Telltale series, which is prior to the events featured in the TV series, is targeting a summer launch on PC and consoles. Adam, first thing, because there's a lot to take away from it. I know that you watched it as well. I sent it to you to watch. About 2 minutes if you want to go watch it on YouTube with the gameplay. I kind of wanted to pick you on this first part because I think Stephen Frost mentioned it here, where he's talking about this is a Telltale game, so we're leaning into that first character-first storytelling. Then we expand it, but then we also bring in Deck 9's cinematic experiences that we've come to know. And the first thing we were talking about off podcast, you said, "Ooh, it's like it looks a lot different. It feels like Telltale, but it looks a bit different." How do you feel about this? Because obviously this is the first Telltale revamp as well, isn't it?
Yes, and what's impressive about this gameplay footage is that one, it already looks better than any Telltale game we've ever seen, like in terms of graphics, in terms of the camera fluidity, I want to say, in terms of storytelling. And it's the best one. And you see at the bottom of the screen, pre-alpha gameplay. And that's what's impressive. If you don't know already, with game development, there's different stages of game development. There, the pre-production. Then you get the footage of like in-engine, right? Whenever you see something that says in-engine, don't believe anything that you see or anything like that, because in-engine can mean anything. But then it says pre-alpha. So then you got the alpha footage and then the beta footage. Beta is like what you get from like an early access game. Like, oh, this is a beta version, right? But then there's alpha, which is before beta, and this is pre-alpha footage. So keep in mind when you watch this, if you go on YouTube, watch the gameplay of this. Excuse me. Keep in mind that the details that we see within this game are within pre-alpha, which is insanity. Yeah, like I'm looking at this right now. Now, it doesn't say it from the 2-minute trailer. Oh, wait. Yes, it does. On the very bottom there. It says pre-alpha.
Right at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, so you look at the details, look at the walls, and look how much time they've spent on this in terms of making the camera shift during cutscenes, right? It's very much a cinematic camera drop and a camera forward, and there's a lot of work with the camera here. Now, in the gameplay, the camera is a little bit stiff, I want to say, but again, we're talking pre-alpha. Like, we're already seeing this amount of detail inside the game pre-alpha. So that gives me a lot of hope about this game, that this is going to be the best looking Telltale game. Now, is it going to be the best Telltale game we've ever seen? That's a lot, coming from the Walking Dead series. That's a lot to ask for. But in terms of the way it looks, the way it moves, the controls, the combat, this could be the Walking Dead 4, the final one. That was great combat, fantastic combat. But this could come to a close second. Like, graphically, this looks impressive just pre-alpha. So I'm impressed with it already.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. And I think the main thing I took away from this straight away was that I'm all for Telltale coming back in 2023. Like, it's been that long since we've really seen Telltale on our screens. It's like, I'm really happy for them to come back as developers. I feel like enough time has passed now. It's like this kind of like this tried and tested formula that they've done previously in the past is like now kind of appealing to me, especially in this kind of market of games. Like, there's a lot of games where I kind of like roll my eyes at because I'm not interested. So I'm really intrigued with that. And then it's like, this kind of feels like a really fitting relationship between Deck 9 and Telltale on this. It just feels like a match made in heaven in terms of, like, as you said, when you look at the cinematic quality, it felt like I was moving away from the same Telltale game that was being produced. It was The Walking Dead, Batman, Game of Thrones, Tales. I played all Telltale games. I love all the Telltale games, especially Back to the Future. I think that's really underrated. That was one of the earlier ones as well that they did. But I loved I really enjoyed, obviously, The Walking Dead. I loved The Wolf Among Us. Great games, but then a lot of them became the same thing. It was like Telltale Tool Engine. Graphically, they looked the exact same. They played the exact same. It felt like a little bit hollow at that point. It just felt like you were kind of like relacing the skin and just putting on the same thing and just doing the same thing because that's what Telltale fans wanted. But then you weren't expanding into bigger markets, especially we're talking about, like, you have like Life is Strange come along, for example, and Life is Strange starts changing the wheelhouse and with the rewind mechanic, and you look at the rewind mechanic, and at that point, Telltale was just doing this character will remember me in the corner. It was like, wait a minute, are you not going to evolve as well? Because this game is now changing the way that episodic games are being told. And they have it in this one as well, even in the gameplay trailer. It has someone will remember this in the corner. I can't remember which character it was. I think it was Kamina off the top of my head, but it says that. But it's like, it wasn't as a precedent as well. It's just kind of like a bit of a nod now at this point. Telltale is like, oh, it's actually, I'm kind of for that. But then watching it felt like I was having more time in the gameplay. Like, even the zero-G stuff as well. Like, we floated through gravity and we were doing like little kind of things of like pulling items to yourself. And as Stephen Frost talked about in the article, like, or in the transcription of what he was saying, like, you can pick up these items. It changes interactions with like how you talk with certain characters or how certain conversations go. It feels like a lot of the same as Telltale, but it feels like there's a little bit kind of like we're going to change the wheel a little bit. We're going to change little things and make it a better experience. Like, I'm going to sit down and watch The Expanse this year is my plan, because I will buy this. I do want to buy it because I'm just intrigued by it. I like Deck 9. I like Telltale. As I said, it's a match made in heaven for me,
Yes.
Can't complain with it. And I kind of want to get into the lore of The Expanse as well. But I'm kind of like, I was enjoying what I saw with the little gameplay segments. It just felt like more than, I remember playing, I think, like Tales from the Borderlands or some of the other Telltale games. I picked something up and I was like, like looking at it on the call.
Yes.
For the listeners, I'm like looking at this like little stick I've got in my hand, but it's like you're looking at it and you're like, oh well, this is like, and it'll just say some random dialogue that they've recorded.
Yeah.
It didn't really achieve anything, but this feels like you kind of spend a bit more time immersing yourself in the world, walking around. It doesn't feel as robotic. Camera, you're right about that. I think like that might be tweaked. Obviously, it's very early as well, as you mentioned as well, being pre-alpha, but it feels like I'm spending more time in the world, and it feels like the gameplay is evolving a little bit more. So it's like giving me that same Life is Strange 1-esque approach, where it's like you spending time with the gameplay, you can kind of do things that are a bit more important. It's not just seamless transaction. I remember like with some of the old Telltale games, it was like transaction, like with scenes, and you basically just watched and then pressed 4 buttons because you were just like choosing the next dialogue option. So I think this seems like this early part of the footage that we've seen seems to have like caught my eye, if anything. And I'm obviously like, I love my sci-fi stuff as well, so it's like I'm kind of like my attention has been caught.
Caught on what?
Oh no, that's why I was ending. I was just my attention has been caught on the game. Like,
I'm sorry, you like dragged. I was like, what was happening? Like, what are you?
No. No, there wasn't a bigger setup. I should have ended it. Yeah, my attention has been caught on the game, if anything, more so than it already has been. It's like it's definitely like my curiosity is continuing to be scratched a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like ending there because I was going to like leave you to.
No. It's definitely like something I'm going to be looking forward to. Do we have a release date? We have a release date, don't we?
No.
A release window?
Summer.
Yeah, it just says summer. Yeah. The Expanse. I just want to. Yeah, I think you're right. The Expanse television series. No, I am talking about the video game.
The video game. We talked about in a couple of episodes back where Telltale said that it's definitely coming out in 2023. So I think summer window.
Yeah, I remember they were talking about how the reason why we're not seeing anything or any updates is because we're putting all that time that we could give you an update on the game. And I'm like, I still relate to that because again, I'm in the process of writing music and I want to write like more of this album. And the more I think about like, oh, I haven't made a TikTok in a while, like promoting myself or like getting you on, it's like, no, I could be doing TikTok. I could be doing like a whole spiel, or I could do the art that I'm promising you that I'm going to do. So same thing with this. Like the reason why it's so graphically enhanced and so detailed is because they're not focusing on making TikToks or YouTubes. They're just focusing on the craft. And you're going to get a good game out of it. I think social media expects a lot out of artists, and it's a shame that it's like, oh, why don't you make a little YouTube little video? It's like, because I'm doing the thing that you're asking me to do. Okay, leave me alone. Get off my back.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Obviously, I would love to have videos on this channel every single day, but just time never manifests that kind of way. So I'd love, I know that feeling, but. Like you said, I think like what we've seen is good. I think like there's a huge hands of experience in there with Zach Garris now working at Telltale and that story development side and his history with BTS and then also True Colors and obviously Stephen Frost in the directing role as well. Like there's very good steady hands in this project. But like you said with Telltale, they have to put their heads down because like they got The Wolf Among Us 2. And then also Deck 9 is collaborating with them on this project. We don't know what Deck 9 else is working on because Deck 9 probably is working on something else. Like, let's be, we don't have to have any insider knowledge or anything to not know that they're working on something probably else. They're a big studio and they seem to have their own kind of ambition.
That's right. Both Wolf Among Us 2 and the Telltale game is coming out this year. So, yeah. Am I going to have any time for this game? Oh my God.
You make time for Telltale.
Plus, Starfield's coming out this year, dude. I don't have the time. I'm an adult. I can't do this, dude. I'm going to have to quit my job. Oh, well.
You have to remember as well, when you say you don't have the time as well, Telltale's going to give you that smaller experience where it's like 15, 20 hours.
Yes.
And it's just going to be pure bliss. And it's going to be better than that 140 hours that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is giving you, for example. So I'm all for it at this point because I can make time for this.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at
because I just beat Hi-Fi Rush, and Hi-Fi Rush is about 15 hours. So that was like, I was totally game to do. You get like Hi-Fi Rush. Like, keep in mind, I just beat this game. This game came out, a month ago? Something like that. I don't even know. And I just beat it. It's a 15-hour game. That came out January 25th. So yeah, it came out a month ago, and I just beat it. So, keep that in mind. But I'm not being Starfield anytime soon. Let's put it that way. I'm going to be too busy. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, as I said, I'm very excited for the Expanse. I like it, and I'm also very intrigued with this. I'm hoping it's not another kind of like illusion of choice, but it's kind of like you find objects and acquire them, and it changes your relationship. I want with this Telltale incarnation to be a bit more of a deeper dive in terms of like choice and consequences. Like Detroit's the kind of gold standard for me at this point. I love Detroit Become Human. It was so good. It was so good. Like the choice and the branching systems was so good, and I want that as well. And I want the option. I hope they kind of like go in a drastic direction as well, where it's like you can kill off characters as well, potentially. I know it's not necessarily the Telltale way. Like sometimes it's like fixes the story and stuff, but I'd like them to introduce a character that you have in the game, and then depending on that, you can kind of cut them if you like get them killed or something. And it happens in the same way as like Until Dawn or Detroit. The story continues without that character.
Yeah,
and I know Telltale have done it before, but it's too fixed with the ones that they've done before in the past. So I'm kind of like hoping this one has a bit more of a, as I said, an Until Dawn or Detroit kind of approach with it. But nonetheless, I'm excited. It seems a bit more, there seems to be a bit more focus on gameplay. It does feel like a lot of the same Telltale, but at the same time, I'm open to them being a bit similar, but hopefully kind of like evolving.
Yes,
it was a big part of the downfall for me with that Telltale. Like it didn't really evolve their studio, and that was the issue of it. Like look at for example, Don't Nod in 2015 compared to where Don't Nod is now, and then compare that with Telltale, for example, where Telltale's at its peak with The Walking Dead, and then when it collapsed, it didn't really do anything different compared to like what Don't Nod's doing, where it's like there's ambition, bigger kind of like scope for games, and really changed it as well. Like they're not just the Life is Strange studio, are they?
No, that's exactly it. Once again, I thought you dragged on. Like, what was happening?
It's terrible today, aren't I?
Yeah. I'm trying to keep up with your cadence, and it's just like whatever. But yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I should try and keep up with your cadence there. Anyway, I think that is our new segments done. Adam, should we go into our main topic?
I think so. Yes.
Yes. So we've got a very interesting main topic here. So I pitched to Adam a big topic, which will probably be a lot of the fummies and stuff that we're doing here, which is which Life is Strange characters do we wish had more on-screen time?
Yes,
in the series. Do you want to go first?
Half of the characters that were in True Colors, like most of the characters that were in True Colors. Honestly, it's just like it feels like we're
kicking off with True Colors first. Let's go.
Oh, yeah,
I'll tell you what. Let's go through each of the games in whatever order you want, but we'll go through each of the games because the cast isn't necessarily as huge as it can be, but we'll do that approach. Yeah. So we'll kick off with True Colors as you've decided.
Well, it's because like okay, I'm losing her name. Flower Shop.
Riley.
Girl. What's that?
Riley.
Yes. I think we didn't get enough screen time with Riley. I don't think we got enough character development with Riley. Even Mac. Like Mac was turning out to be the Nathan Prescott of the whole series, and I wanted to know more. Like, what's this dude's deal? Like, what's his problem? But like, no, he's just like kind of like a dick. I don't know. But I wish we had way more time with Gabe. I wanted way more screen time with Gabe.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
The most screen time we had was with Jed and Alex. Like that was her screen time, and of course, Steph. And
more so Alex, if anything. I think that just kind of let you continue as well. But I think there's an imbalance in the game where it's like Alex is the main character who has like, and obviously as it is, the main character has the most screen time, but everyone else is kind of like, as you said, very imbalanced across the entire board.
Yes,
and I think like that's a big kind of like thing with it. But continue.
Oh boy, no. I just like Googled characters in True Colors and it gave me Victoria Chase. I was like, what are you talking about? So yeah, like I'm just like going through the character. Yeah, Charlotte. Oh my god. I wish we had more time with Charlotte because she had such a dark storyline. Like what was it, episode 3, where she regrets having
Chapter
Ethan?
3. We don't do episodes anymore.
Oh yeah, that's right. Chapter 3. Where she like had the same like regret of like, oh, I should have pursued my passion, but instead I just decided to get like in a relationship, and I have Ethan to look out for. Like just a crazy dynamic. Here's the biggest problem with True Colors is that we had Valkyrie. I wanted more screen time with Valkyrie, but that's the thing. I just feel like we had so many characters that had interesting story plots with only 5 chapters, and you had to focus on Alex Chen's, so it was just like all very, very interesting characters within True Colors, and I feel like we didn't have any time to like really dive deep into these characters, especially Charlotte. My God, I want to know more about her, but I feel like we had enough time with Ducky. I think Ducky was pretty.
It's the best scene of the game. He has the best scene of the entire game,
and it was an optional scene. Like,
I know,
and that's
very
with the dance scene. It was just like it's very good. Like, but I would say like half of the characters within True Colors in of itself, again, Gabe. I wanted more Gabe. I wanted way more Gabe, but it is what it is. The story is there. The story is there. Nothing you can do about it. But I wanted to know more.
Yeah, to preface, I don't dislike True Colors. I don't hate True Colors.
No.
I always reiterate this, because it was always.
I'm saying this because I love True Colors.
Yeah, I really like True Colors. It's like a strong. Depending on the day you catch me, 7 or 8 out of 10 for me. Just if I was going to give you a verdict on that, I have niggling issues with it, and like this was one of the bigger niggle issues that we talked about in the review episode, and generally across the board, where it's like the game should have been longer. Yes. It didn't need to be a 60-hour game. It's not going to be that kind of game with Life is Strange, but they packaged it as almost like a AAA game. Like they were trying to package it that Square Enix, like with the kind of like, the revolutionary kind of like approach they were doing to the series. And I use revolutionary in quotations because it's like they were using mocap, full body mocap, and they were trying to make it like a full adventure game with like a huge story at the heart of it. But it kind of clocked in about, I think, like 15 hours, if I remember off the top of my head, like 15 hours for True Colors really to play through, if not a little bit less. A lot of filler content in between it, a very limited kind of like map space to kind of go through. It should have been a little bit bigger, but this is the issue with it. And this is an issue that you see across the entire board with like Life is Strange games. I think more so the Deck 9 ones, because obviously the prequel BTS was only 3 episodes. We had like a lot of, characters that didn't have bigger roles that they could have played, like, a bit more expansion to their story. And I think this is the one with True Colors. Like, Alex's story is fine for me. She has plenty of on-screen time. Love Erica Mori. Great performance. Everything about it. Like you said, Han Soto, I would love to have seen Gabe more. I think, like, we'll talk about another character we would have seen about in Life is Strange too, but he had the same kind of, like, Esteban approach where he kept popping up and he was having these really meaningful conversations with Alex. I wish they would have done somewhere where they were optional, like, just in circumstances where you could have, like, triggered them whilst you're in town. If you just gone back at a certain time, you could see it. Would have loved that. So, for example, like, when the festival's happening in that chapter, and you have the optional part with Ducky, would have loved one if there was one with Gabe, like, a deeper one where it's like 5 or 10 minutes where you just sitting on a bench talking to him.
Yeah.
All for that. Love that. It's great character development, great storytelling. Always for that. So, like, Gabe would have loved to see more. I would have loved to have made a decision between Ryan and Steph. This was the one that really niggled me. I don't like third wheeling is not my kind of thing, Two's company, like, three's too much. Like, I just don't like that kind of the way it happened, because Steph, the way that they built her up in the promotional material and everything else, doesn't deliver in the final game. Like, she's nowhere near as much on screen time as much as I wanted her to be. Like, they were going to really hammer it down. Like, I really wanted her to be on screen more times. And I've always said this before, I've just a funny feeling inside, like, there was a lot of things that changed in development. Like, even Steph sometimes positions herself like she could be the main character of True Colors, where it was like a change in direction where it's like, we'll make Alex Chen instead, we'll go down this route. There were all the kind of like telling signs for that. So I wish we would have seen that, because I think, like, in itself, obviously with the Prose novel coming out, but we could have seen something with Izzy. We could have seen more stuff in Wavelengths, especially with like Mikey. I would love to Mikey to come to the town, but obviously I know they were going for the COVID-esque, isolation kind of route. But again, it feels too, like, those scenes, for example, you could have Gabe in that.
Yeah,
that could have been happening. Like, Gabe could have walked into the store. It would have, like, added more quality. Like, that would have, like, appeased this conversation when we say there's more on-screen time. Because I don't think every character needs on-screen time. Like, I think I agree with you with Ducky. Ducky's fine for me. That's all he needs. After that, then it becomes too much Ducky. Mm-hmm. I think Diane Jacobs. I would love to have seen more Diane. I love Anastasia. Yeah. I loved Anastasia. I loved her performance. I think she was great, and I think like when she talked about us before on Life After Strange and also StrangeCast, like we were talking about, you know, there was meant to be an idea that her and Officer Pike's character was meant to be a bigger kind of like, you know, a dynamic there, and I think they might have scrapped it, and probably for a good reason. I don't think you need the relationship of a cop kind of style from it, but I think that they could have worked on it a bit more and like maybe even cryptically teased it a bit more. But like as I said, Diane's got great moments on that. I think she could have had a little bit more time. Doesn't need a huge amount more. I think just a little bit more. Riley again. I think everyone loved Riley. You know, we know Michelle said like, why couldn't you give her a rose to Riley at the festival? I think like Riley was a great character. Danielle Vivatas was very, very good in that.
Yes,
really enjoyed that. Jed, I think Jed's fine personally. I think we see enough of Jed.
Well, that's what I mean. We got a lot of Jed.
I think we might see too much Jed, to be honest. I think he gave himself away too much by the time we got to that chapter, and he reveals himself. I think it was like a bit, you know, I was like, oh,
a little too much.
I don't need it. Yeah. Same again with Ethan. I think we see enough of Ethan. I think it's fine with that. I think I'm fine with a couple of other characters, like, you know, the minor ones. I think Eleanor, again, I think that's fine as well. You know, we get enough of her story. Charlotte, I agree with you. I think we could have seen a little bit more Charlotte, just a little bit. Doesn't need to be like a huge amount of time. As I said, I'm kind of like talking about, when I keep saying like a bit more time, I'm like talking about some characters just need that little bit more that kind of like just made the game even more feeling complete, rather than, you know, some characters who deserve a lot more time. For example, I would love to have seen a bigger story of Riley. I think there was more that she could have just kept interweaving in Alex's story and playing a part. And I think in itself as well, it seems like a little bit, because obviously we have that dynamic with Han Solo's character with Gabe and Riley at first, and then Mac as well, and it kind of fizzles out very quickly. And Mac, as he said as well, I wish they wouldn't have played in that stereotype a bit too much. It seemed too Nathan Prescott. Here's a red herring again. It was like, again, too Life is Strange 1-esque in terms of the formula it was following, I think, personally. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen Riley a bit more. And then I think Ryan, I don't really want to see Ryan that much. I think you could have brought Ryan's influence bit back, personally speaking. Yes. I loved him in LARP and some of those other conversations he had with Alex, but I think like his role could have been decreased a little bit, if anything. I would have rather Steph been positioned as more of the main choice character to kind of support Alex. But I think based on True Colors, they're the kind of ones I have. And I think we're very similar on that.
Yes, I think that True Colors, there was just way too many interesting characters that we didn't have enough time with.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go to the GOAT next? Life is Strange 2.
Yeah, I already have the character list up.
Now, this one's a lot bigger. And I think I'll kick things off with Sean and Daniel are fine for me. Perfectly fine. Yeah. I think Esteban's personally fine, but I would love to have seen more of Esteban. I love Amador's performance. I think it was great seeing Esteban. I think the father-son kind of relationship really touched me a lot at that time, and I think it continues to really resonate with me well now as well. And I think like I was really sentimentally attached to that relationship, so I really enjoyed that one. I think Karen was enough for one episode, but wouldn't have minded a bit more as well, because I was really like Julian Anderson's performance. I think there was
I thought she was a good reveal, and I thought she had like her reasons were explained well in the series.
Yeah, I'll put a bold statement out here. It might be controversial. I think they handled the father-mother relationship with a character in Life is Strange 2 better than they do in Life is Strange 1. So even more so than the William Price and Joyce Price relationship with Chloe, for example. I think this is dealt 50 times better with like Karen and Esteban in Life is Strange 2. So I think they're kind of good. Do you want to take some other characters? I don't want to just ramble on and then you're...
There's only one character we wanted more of. And we all know the answer.
The GOAT.
Brody. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, we all want more Brody. We want way more Brody. We wanted to know if Brody was like like related somehow to the Prescotts, because he kept alluding like, yeah, my family was super rich and they didn't know how to be happy and blah blah blah, so I went on my own journey. It was like, are you like a cousin? Like what's happening here? And then he's like, oh yeah, look at Arcadia Bay, look how it's. I'm like, are you related somehow to the Prescotts? Like, we didn't get any answers, so we just saw him for one episode and then that's it. Like, what the heck?
So just to kind of interject with that, because I agree with you, I really like Brody. Obviously, big inspiration that they had for the game, and then plays a big part in it. But do you not think Brody will become a bit overbearing if he's in it for much longer than he is?
No.
And I talk about more in the sense like this is the one
I need
where
a lot of Seth Rogen in my life, so no.
I'm talking about in the sense the same way that I feel about Lila in the game. Like, I think if you would talk to me many years ago or like different points in it, I've always kind of changed, mixed and matched on my relationship with her. I think like obviously there was a big one with the love interest with Sean in the first episode, but I think personally the way that the story goes, the direction it goes, I'm very happy they cut her off essentially after episode 1. Again, obviously, you know, kind of like a reoccurring.
I'm not going to fight for Layla. Like, I'm not going to fight for that one.
Lila, you get called out for that.
Yeah, every time. I know a Layla, so it's just kind of like like I already know a Layla, so I hope
you
get
called out in the comments by someone that we already know who's going to call you out for it.
Oh yeah, go for it. You know who you are. Do you think I care? I really don't. Go for it.
Call him out.
Lila. Yeah, call me out. I don't really care. I work in restaurants, man. You don't think I get called out on the daily?
Oh, he goes to the restaurant and calls you out. Can I speak to that chef? He's calling her Layla.
Yeah, exactly. Can I speak to the chef calling her Layla? I was just like, all right, dude, you can calm down. Eat your burger. Go sit down. But which, by the way, I recently at the restaurant, like, I got called back for a burger. Like, we want this well done, and it was well done. They're like, no, like, well done, like burnt basically. And I was like, are you kidding? No. Like, I put it on the grill for like 2 minutes, like not even like a minute or two, and I sent it back. They're like, perfect. I'm like, okay.
Just eat your dried up hockey puck. But
yeah, honestly,
you know, but do you know, like, think the Lila comparison is similar to the Brody one, where it's like if we put her in too much, then she starts overbearing on the story, and it's like,
yeah, no, I would never, like, because we have enough phone calls with Lila, we have enough decisions with Lila. I think Lila plays a part where she is the anchor back to Seattle, you know, like where Sean is having regrets leaving, and Lila keeps calling, and Lila's always on his mind. I think Lila serves the role of being the anchor of Seattle because, you know, Esteban is not the anchor anymore. But Lila is, you know, not Jen Murphy. Jen Murphy's not, you know, Jen Murphy, goodbye. But Lila serves as a character to, like, bring back regrets with Sean. Yeah. So I think she serves in that kind of role in the story. So I think we have enough time with her, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, like, with Brody, I wouldn't have minded him appearing once or twice more.
Yeah, just once more.
Even briefly, but in itself, I'm going to argue, I wouldn't have minded him appearing in like True Colors, for example.
Yeah,
just add like my on-screen time thing, where it's like more Life is Strange characters who deserve on-screen time. Isn't necessarily a conversation where I'm restricting it just to one game or anything. They could be appearing in other games as well. And he's the character that seems fit for it. Because obviously, spoiler alert, jump ahead a minute if you haven't read the Life is Strange comics, but. You know, he appears in the comics, and when I saw that, where I got up to, I still haven't caught up yet. I'm still behind, but when he appears in the comics, I'm like, oh, damn, it's like Brody. They are really like mixing, matching in the mythology of him. And even with Brody, he didn't even talk as well in True Colors, even if he was just there as a passing figure or something. You know, it's the Dave Madsen effect. That's what it is. Yes. Even if it's just briefly, you're like, damn. I'm like, oh. And speaking of Dave Madsen as well, like, I think what we see is enough from him in that episode.
Yes.
In Life is Strange. I don't need to see Ponytail Dave. I love Ponytail Dave, you know, representing. But, like, you know, I'm fine with enough as we see in... we've spoken about him being, for me, potentially one of the most complete characters in Life is Strange. There's an entire episode, if you haven't watched us talk about it. But I think, again, he's got really balanced. I think they balance it really well in Life is Strange, too. I think the only ones I would change... Also, like, let's jump into episode 2, for example. Like, Chris.
Yes.
This is the one where I know that how you feel about this. Like Chris Erickson, Charles Erickson, more or less for you?
Oh, in actual Life is Strange 2?
Yeah.
More. I want him to be main character. Like
Yeah.
more. I think in terms of where the story went, I think we're just fine with just seeing Chris and Charles once in the one episode that they were in. I think it was just fine for where the story was heading. Other than that, like I don't need to see Chris again, you know. And we did see Chris once. Like depends on your ending, you know. Chris comes back, and you know, like Daniel and Chris are friends again, so it's fine, it's good. But you know, I think for where the story was going, I think we got just enough of them. Yeah,
it's a hard one with Life is Strange too, because like when characters come and go, they go because like as we've spoken about before, and why I love it so much, the story is the Diaz brothers. They are the focus of it. Like like for example, Life is Strange 1 and BTS, like Rachel Amber's part of the Max and Chloe story. If you don't want, if you can argue with me as much as you want, she's part of it. She's intrinsically entwined with it, and other characters are like they have to keep coming and going from it. But with this, it's like the main narrative is just Daniel and Sean, and then from there, people pop up. So it's like Esteban or you know Cassidy or Karen or you know X character, but then they weave out the narrative because these are the two main characters. So I think like Chris, I think I would have liked to have seen him a bit more, but I think you could have made the entire episode 2 about all of them. So it could have been he could have been there from the very beginning, beyond when when you complained about your 7-minute cutscene as you did, which obviously I've said before. You know, episode 2 rules is the best episode of the entire like.
It is not. It's straight up not. Like it is not the best episode.
I was reviewing them at the time. That's where my precedent had set. Love Life is Strange 2. Well, it could have been an entire episode around them, if anything. Like it could have been like episode 2 could have been like the Awesome Adventures Captain Spirit in an entire nutshell, where he's there for the entire thing, and you get to enjoy that. And especially with like obviously Charles as well. I think like Charles, I would have explored a bit more. I like that. There was like moments where he's with Sean, he's talking to him. He's like, "Oh, I wish I could have been a better father," and you know, to Chris and. Even their relationship is explored quite a lot in the Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, but I wish it would have been a bit more in Life is Strange 2. I think there's a lot of room for that. So, personally, fine with them, even with the time that they have. And I think this is probably the game where I'm more happy with the balance that we actually have with the characters and the on-screen time they have. Really, I wouldn't change a huge amount of them. Grandparents are fine. I mean, going to episode 3, obviously there's a huge bias. I would love to have seen more Cassidy.
Oh yeah.
She's one of the best characters in the entire series. But if I'm going to take Cassidy away from it, I would have liked to have seen a bit more on screen, because obviously Cassidy's in episode 2 briefly, and then with Finn as well. I think they have abundance of time, if anything. I think if you put too much time on them, then you're overbearing on the entire experience. But I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more focus on someone like Penny, for example.
I was going to say, like, I wanted more Penny. I think he was more interesting than who was the character that we got in Faith?
Jacob,
yeah. I think Penny was a more interesting character than Jacob.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I thought they went really down an interesting route with Jacob. And
in terms of like where Jacob came from, like like in terms of conversion therapy and all that, I related a lot. But maybe that's why I don't want that, because I had enough of that in my life. That was just like, I don't want to relive this. Like, as I've worked with churches that, listen, man, let's just say that they nailed it on the head. They really did. Yeah. And I didn't want to relive that. So I was just like, I've lived enough of this. I don't want to go down this route. But I wanted more Penny.
Penny was just, it was like, I've had the pleasure of speaking to Orval, and he's like a G, and it's like, that was a character where I think a lot of people feel well with Penny. I think like he's the one that could have had just a bit more time in that campsite and like had more exposure. Because I feel like the other ones, like I think like Hannah, Ingrid, like some of those, they kind of like reminded me a little bit of Samantha Myers, where I'm like, I'm fine with how much they had. I think even you could have brought their time back a little bit, but I think like for what I saw, happy. But Penny was like the kind of one that stood out, where it's like he's almost in the same vein as like a Cassidy and Finn character, where it's like you want that he has the personality for it. Yes, and I think like he's a fan favorite for me personally. But I completely agree with you. Penny could have had a little bit more time, and especially more so in that episode. I wouldn't obviously want him to come back in episode 4. It would make no sense. And I think the Jacob, for example, makes sense to come back in episode 4. He's not got the personality for it, but for on-screen time and his way in the story, I think that's perfectly fine. And I think personally after that, episode 4, I'm fine with everyone else. In episode 5, I'm really fine with anyone else. I don't think anyone else needs more time, personally speaking.
No. I'm in full agreement. I think we could have gotten more time with Penny and Brody, maybe even Cassidy. But for the most part, it was pretty spot on. I liked everything. Whereas True Colors, I wanted more of everybody.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think the balancing is I think probably the strongest in this episode, personally.
Yes.
Karen, do you agree with me? Do you want more time?
Yeah,
with Karen,
I thought Karen played her role. I think maybe half an episode more, like maybe coming earlier. Like an earlier kind of thing, so maybe a little bit more, but I think that her story told itself. I think we got her reasons. I think we got her as a character, and I think Karen had her spot in the light, and we got enough of her.
Yeah, I know. I think that's fair. I think like my bias comes in when it's like Cassidy and like Karen and stuff. I think like I just wanted to see a bit more of them, and also as well as we've spoken about before. Like I said, it's probably the most balanced for characters in the on-screen time. Kudos to like Sarah and Sarah Bartholomew who played Cassidy, and also Jolene who played Jolene Anderson who played Karen. They got nominated for Oscars, for BAFTAs for this. They were only in one episode each, and the time isn't as huge as you'd think it is. Like the performances across the board for the entire Life is Strange 2 are seminal. Great game, great game. You go and play. If you do not like Life is Strange 2, fight me. Anyway, where do you want to go next? Do you want to go with BTS or Life is Strange 1?
BTS, and then we'll go Life is Strange 1. It's got to be, hasn't it? Yeah.
Right. So I think they could have just made more time for Rachel Amber. We needed more Rachel Amber in this game. I love Rachel Amber.
More?
Yeah, but I can't get enough of Rachel Amber. I think she should have been the main character, and Chloe should have been the side character. Just to annoy some people in the comments.
No, I only have 2 characters in mind. That's it. Just 2 from Before the Storm.
Let's have a think. I think... Oh my God, my mind's just gone blank on him. Frank
I'll go.
Is one.
No, it's a duo.
Really?
Like, it's a duo. I think we had enough of Frank in this. I think we got enough of like his backstory into this.
Is it Nathan and Samantha?
I wanted more of that.
Wow, really?
I wanted more because I thought that Samantha was going to be Nate's cure to him. Like she was good for him, but then we didn't really get enough of that. And we saw a little bit of Nathan and his father, like his father, like really messing him up and then wetting himself basically. Yeah. I don't know. I really want those are the only 2 characters that I was just like, I wanted, especially Samantha. I wanted way more Samantha. Like I wanted like more out of her. We really didn't get that. We got like hints that Samantha and Nathan were a thing, but maybe they weren't. Like I wanted to know like what the actual thing was between those 2.
It feels a bit unfulfilled, doesn't it, with BTS? Like they made the decision where it's a prequel episode with 3. Like this is my argument I've always had with them, and I agree with you as well in that sense because I would have preferred it to be 5 episodes.
Yes.
And in those episodes as well, like you said, Samantha and Nathan, whether you like Samantha or not is a different conversation. Her story could have given a lot more purpose to Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like there's certain things with Nathan's backstory that get fleshed out, and especially with like his relationship with his dad, but it doesn't really give you a clear indication of like Samantha. For example, I would have liked the idea that had they introduced Jefferson in the game, he was actually there and stuff. They could have like fed Samantha Myers as essentially one of the characters that is taken out in the dark room, for example, and it starts the Nathan Prescott route of manipulation down Jefferson's kind of like route. That would have made more sense. Like as you said as well, I like that. It would have given a bit more kind of like meatiness to his character, especially for context wise. Completely agree with it. The other one for me would have been the Rachel Amber Frank dynamic. I wanted that settled. I would have liked them to even have thrown you a loop, and whether you agree with it or not, where it's that you find out, for example, she didn't really have an affair with Frank. She just basically became friends with him very close. He got feelings with her because obviously he knew her biological mother. And then she was like, no, I'm committed to Chloe. And it throws everyone for a loop. So people who don't like Rachel Amber then realize, oh, I kind of misjudged this person. She's not a serial cheater. She's not the kind of like, she might present herself as like, this like lovable girl. Everyone loves her. She has this, but she has her own problems and stuff, but she's not the cheater that you think she is or anything.
No.
I wish they would have done that. I wish they would have gone bold enough to have done something like that and thrown you for complete loop, because then you're like, hang on a minute, what Chloe believes in the first Life is Strange isn't true. And it's like, it's never really rectified, but she doesn't, and it kind of gives me more understanding that Chloe doesn't know who Rachel Amber is either. I think there's still debate about that as well. Those two relationships, I feel perfectly could have like spent more time in like 2 more episodes in between, obviously, the main story, and you would have got that. So I think I completely agree with you on the Samantha Myers and Nathan Prescott part of it. And I think with the other characters, I think like in hindsight, Steph might have had a little bit more, or I think maybe she had enough time. I think the other one actually better than Steph, because I think Steph has enough then actually, is Victoria. Victoria feels unfulfilled the same way as Nathan. I think like they kind of feed into it across all 3 episodes, where it's like she is kind of like, lingering in Rachel Amber's shadow, but we didn't see Queen B like emerge in the same kind of way, or Queen V actually a better way of putting it. We don't see her emerge. I wish it would just like set up to the point where we know that she kind of becomes, the Mean Girls kind of esque character. Like she's the queen of the Vortex Club. I think there was just a little bit time there.
Yes.
Could have just taken her a little bit to ascendancy, because like she's a great character and BTS enjoyed her, she loves her tea and everything, but like there was just that little bit. I just wanted to see her like walk in Mean Girls with her crew and like and you kind of set up for the main Life is Strange game. I mean, obviously they cut Taylor, for example, so we know that was a bit of a different decision that they made there, so maybe it didn't work out from it. Other than that, I think we're fine. Obviously, I like William Price. I think we see plenty of him in that game, and I think like it's really good from it as well, all the way through to Farewell. And then Dave Madsen is also good enough in that game. Maybe a little. No, actually, no. I'm fine with that. Yes. And then I think Joyce maybe is the argument.
Maybe
I think Joyce. Joyce needed a little bit more. I think she's too much, infatuated with Dave Madsen, and it's kind of like she ignores. I wish it would have. Either they emphasized the ignorance on Chloe, or kind of her rift a little bit more in terms of relationship post William dying. And I think that would have kind of fed it, because she doesn't seem to play as big as a role as she did in Life is Strange 1. It seems obviously that William Price is bigger, but then again, left wanting. This is the problem with BTS. BTS is a great game. I love BTS. I love the prequel, but it's just little things, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's still little details. But again, we're talking about like a game that still handles its characters better than True Colors, I think. Yeah. Because True Colors left way too much. But BTS, just little details. I wish I would have had more, Yeah,
I agree with you. Any other characters, or are you happy to move on?
No, like I said, the 2 characters were just Samantha and Nathan. I just wanted to know what that thing was. But other than that, I was pretty satisfied. Maybe more Skip Matthews. A little bit more Skip Matthews. But that's about it.
I'll give Skip a bit more time there. Like he could have taken up. But yeah, I think that everything else was done. I think even with I think the who's Chloe's creepy relationship with the guy that she's with, Elliot.
Oh no, less of Elliot. Less.
Yeah, very much. Like I did not need Elliot in my life, and I don't want Elliot in my life. Like that's I think like that's the thing with it. Like when they made all these decisions and stuff, I wouldn't have minded Warren being in the game. Like, I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's in the terms of the age range and stuff, or whatever. But I think like those characters where I think a couple of them could have got a little bit more screen time. Some could have got withdrawn a little bit more, and then I think other relationships could have been explored more. Same with like Rachel's relationship with a biological mother. I don't think it really needs that much more than what it had. I think that's perfectly fine. And same with her dad as well. I think he kind of established that he's a bit of a douche. Yeah, off the bat. So it's like I think that's more than enough, and I think Rachel and Chloe have plenty of time as well. So obviously, Adam, the last one, Life is Strange 1.
Yes, Justin Williams. More skateboarding. More skateboarding. I needed more. He's like
just a second way playing Ollie Ollie World. That would be
exactly like he's just playing Ollie Ollie World like before before it's even conceptualized. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would love to see that. And he's just Max, come to thrash. Justin Williams, more Justin Williams.
Yes, I'll allow that. I'll allow.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. I think
because like a lot of characters got their time in the light. I mean,
it's really well balanced, isn't it?
Because like Samuel, you want to say you want more Samuel, but I feel like he's so mysterious that like if you got more screen time, that mystery would kind of be like, thrown under the rug.
To add on to what you're saying as well, I think this game reminds me of the first Scream. Do you like for character time? Like if you put like when they're doing the first Scream, obviously anyone who's watched Wes Craven's Scream, like you'll know it. And if you haven't, like where have you been?
Yes.
The first Scream, like there's so many red herrings and like certain things, and they do enough creepiness with certain characters where it's like, that's fine. Samuel, you put him in front of the screen too much time, it's too much. Jefferson, enough. Has more than enough. And I think like all the characters do, I think they have a really good balance with Life is Strange 1. I think maybe limitations, maybe the way they're going with story, obviously, and my bias, like Rachel Amber would have been a nice addition for me, but like maybe that's just be me.
Yeah,
I think that probably would have unbalanced the story if anything. I think like what you see in the references, I think, and where she's positioned the story, that's fine. Max, perfectly fine. Obviously, main character does it. Complemented very well with Chloe. We see enough of Chloe. We see plenty of Chloe, and Chloe's just the perfect, the yin to the yang there. So no issue with that.
And like even Frank Bowers had enough because like everybody had their mystery behind them where you're just trying to figure out where everybody is. If we had any more screen time with any other characters, that mystery would just kind of fail out because you're starting to think it's Samuel because he's kind of like, what's his deal? You're starting to think Frank because he's pretty sketchy. And we found out he's not sketchy if he's a nice little man. That would fine. Yeah. Nathan, even if we got more of Nathan,
too much.
If we got more like the Nathan and we saw him before the storm, I think we would have been like, okay, it's not him because he's a little nice boy. He's just misunderstood by his daddy. Everything else, like within Life is Strange 1, if we had more screen time with literally anybody else, I think the story would become unbalanced, and I think there would be less intrigue to know like who is the real killer or not. Yeah, the real killer. That's why we're so thrown off with Jefferson, because again, like unlike True Colors, where we got a lot of interesting characters that were left, not left for the imagination. But here's the thing: we wanted to know more in terms of True Colors. I'm talking about. We wanted to know more because we thought they were interesting characters and I want to hang out with you. Whereas Life is Strange 1, there was a lot of interesting characters. But in terms of like, what's your deal? Like you're taking notes, like you're in Blue's Clues. You know what I mean? It's like, like you're taking steps of people. You're getting intrigued of like suspects. Whereas again, True Colors, I wanted to hang out with them.
I agree with you because I think bringing you should brought True Colors into this part of the conversation. Look at the balance, for example, between like William Price in the first Life is Strange game, and then Alex's dad in True Colors. Yes. Like the way he enters into the story is so late. Yes. And it's kind of like multiple jogging, like different storylines. Like this one with William Price is constantly throughout the entire first game. Like as you said, balance is the issue of Life is Strange 1. Like, and I mean issue in the sense that it's great because it's like you have one main storyline that's going through the game like this as like a kind of like a wave pattern, and then in between that you have other ones that are like lacing it constantly. Mm-hmm. It's like characters have to drop out, they have to come in. Like for me, if I was going to make the argument for it. And I think because obviously they focus more about where the game is at that point. They give Joyce Price a bit more precedent. Would have liked a bit more William Price. Maybe in the same way that obviously they did in Life is Strange 2. When you have like Esteban kind of coming up as a kind of like a ghost kind of esque figure and talking to Sean. I would have minded that one episode earlier, maybe in Life is Strange 1. Because obviously we have a full section with him in episode 3, Chaos Theory, where it's like, you have that entire thing where you meet him, you see how lovable he is. Love him. He's so good. He's so good in that. But and I think maybe he has enough. But I think like obviously there's also an argument with me saying that it would be good having him as a ghost figure for Chloe. Then that distracts away from Max. Max is the main character. So I think like there's like little caveats from it. I think if anything, I wouldn't have minded just a little bit more on the Frank Bowers Rachel Amber relationship in this one as well. I wish they would have planted the seed where you're not believing what you think and what they're telling you isn't the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I think that would have been a bit more. But then again, like at the end of in episode 5, when like when you can speak to Frank in the diner with Max, and then he's like, he's like, oh, this is what Rachel means. He's like, you found a body, you know, etc. So again, like I think it's an imbalance again. I think, like as he said, I think this is the most difficult one, and I think
because
if
again,
anything,
it's balanced in a way where you're like, it's intrigue more than what's your deal. You know, it's like it's just you're taking notes on these people. It's a mystery.
Okay, so because I don't think we're going to get anything. I think maybe the one or two minor characters you couldn't do. But I'll give you a different scenario because I don't want this. I don't want people to get to this conversation and think this is really boring.
More Pompidou. More Pompidou.
Well, yeah, that dog gets run over in my story, so it doesn't matter about him.
You throw the bone in the street?
Yeah, just to spite you.
What?
that's just to spite you, personally. But here's the one. Then I'll throw you a different one, just to kind of make this conversation a bit more juicy. Would you decrease anyone's screen time in this?
No.
Considering the
not really. I don't think
less
I would.
Nathan, less Jefferson.
No, less Nathan. No, I would. I again, I want to know more about Nathan. I want to get his deal because he's just. Honestly, no. I thought everybody. I don't want less of anybody. I really don't want less of anybody. Honestly, I'm looking through all the character lists right now. I really don't want anything less than what we had. Even Warren maybe a little less, but like I don't know. Like even then,
yeah, that was one that I was gravitating towards. Just like a little bit, just like a little fraction less. And they make it a bit too much with Warren, but like
less Alyssa.
The other characters. What's that?
Less Alyssa.
Mate, Alyssa's great.
Yeah, I always rewound her.
I warmed up to her really, like, when I've said it like 15 times, I really warmed up to it. It's like, it's by far Day's best performance as well.
Mm.
Hey, Max.
That's what I mean. Like, I always
I don't know how she does it.
When she got hit by a football, I just rewound it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's Day's moment more than Kate Marsh by far, easily. I think, like, they should have made a spin-off game around Alyssa. That would have sold a lot of money, a lot of thingies. But
Alyssa
I think
before the storm. You're just trying to stop her from tripping on wires.
Who's the other character that Dave plays? Is it Juliet?
Yes, Juliet. She plays Juliet, Kate Marsh, and Alyssa.
Right. Maybe actually, considering where we go with the game, and then also in like BTS, I thought the Dana story was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would have minded just a little bit more with Dana actually.
Dana or Dana.
Yeah,
Juliet. Wait, did I say she voiced Dana? Because she voices Juliet Watson.
No, I said does she? I said does she voice Juliet, and you said yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought we were okay. Good.
No. I wouldn't minded like a little bit more with Dana. I think the kind of teen pregnancy kind of thing was like really quite nice to put in there in terms of as the game kind of like part of its commentary. I just wish we would have had like one or two more scenes because I think like there's an interesting dynamic between Dana and Max. I think like you kind of I think there could have just been a little bit more. Not obviously not like saying like let's make up an entire episode about it. Like just like one or two more scenes. I wouldn't have minded that actually, to be honest.
Yes.
In hindsight, but other than that, I think it was a really well balanced game. It's just like that's why it's so well loved, even 8 years later. Like it's still a beloved game. Well, 7 years, 7 or 8, but like it's still 8 now.
Yeah, like it's still well loved and well treated, and it's still like a really well cherished game. And I think it's because of the balance of the characters and where the story goes. Other than like maybe a little less Warren, but that's about it. That's all I would say.
1, 2, BTS are all really well balanced. True Colors is the one that's the most like.
It leaves more to like I want to know more, but like they won't give it. But no, I think it was a really well balanced story, and I enjoyed the ride with it. Yeah,
I agree with you. That's a testament of like a fantastically developed game, and especially with Life is Strange 1 when you hold up, and even 2 as well. As I said, like you compare it after we did that before 1 as well, and we like barely any really changes, if anything. Like it was just more about me fan pleasing myself. I was like, I'd love a bit more like Cassidy, but I was like, you should kind of unhinge the kind of balance the episode. The only one that could really stand out there was Penny, if anything, and I think Penny had the potential to have like a really kind of a bit more of a meatier role in episode 3, but again, like that's just a minor compared to what the actual balance of the story is. And obviously Brody as well. Like, you don't want too much of him personally. I think like you need balance with him, but he could easily have been a reoccurring cast member through at least 3 or 4 of the episodes, if anything.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's a good conversation. Unless there's anything else you got to add.
No, I think we said what we needed to say about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And go and play Life is Strange 2. And go and play episode 2 Rules, the best episode of all time.
Yes, why don't you go replay Life is Strange 2?
I don't need to. I preach it. I preach it to the sun and roof here.
I still haven't played it on Switch yet. There's so many games. Like right now I'm playing Minish Cap on Switch right now. So
yeah. I would wait anyway for 2. It'll come to sale on Switch, so it's easy for that. But yeah, I think it'll be a pretty cool experience playing on Switch. There, I think it'll just be quite nicely fit on that. But anyway, we are near the end. Spread the arts. Would you like to go first?
I'm only 4 episodes in. I will say, on Netflix, if you ever, my favorite movie of all time, I'll say, probably my top 3 is the movie Chef. I love Chef. It's one of my favorites. But I didn't know. I was not aware of this at all. I finished the season. I was going to say Next Level Chef. I'm like 3 episodes in. And if you're a cook and you watch this show, like you'll know the mistakes that they're making. And you're just like, bro, why stop? Like, but if you don't know anything about cooking, it's just kind of like, okay, why is everybody getting upset? So Next Level Chef, if you're a cook, you'll know it's awesome. But what I didn't know on Netflix, so going back to the Chef movie, there's a show called The Chef Show. It's with Jon Favreau and the chef that trained him, Roy Choi. And they just go around to different restaurants making different recipes. They're all like 30-minute episodes, and they're just chilling, relaxing, talking to celebrities. And it's almost like a podcast, but with cooking. So it's very relaxing. I enjoyed it, and it was just fun to watch Jon Favreau struggle in the kitchen. Actually, so it's called The Chef Show. It's on Netflix. It's very relaxing, very laid back. I recommend it. And then Next Level Chef. It's stupid, but it's fun.
Very nice recommendation. So I will kick things off here with might be a bit of a cheat, but like I'm going to do it again. The South Park season continues with season 26, and I would recommend you check out the second episode because one Prince and one Duchess of she's a Sussex or whatever it is. The Prince Harry and Meghan are their main targets, and I've saying to my brother before, I was like, I've not seen South Park this much relevant in the mainstream news since like early 2000s. Like, and that was for the more quote unquote controversial stuff they did. They like ripped these two a new one, and from what I've been following up on the news as well, apparently they're deeply upset by what's happened, and they're even looking at potentially, from what I've read in reports, proceeding with legal action against South Park. And just a reminder, South Park has run for 26 seasons, has literally obliterated celebrities from Paris Hilton to Kanye West to George Clooney, and no one has ever sued them because they know that what satire is, and also what comedy is that you do not try and sue someone like this. And I think, like, in itself, I was saying to my my brother, I was like, all they're doing is basically making themselves reoccurring characters, because if you're willing to go down the legal route of this, you're 100% going to become a reoccurring character, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do it. But no, very funny. It's funny because, like, what I find funny about it, if anything, the episode is like they take the mick out of them, wanting their privacy, and I don't want to get too political or social, whatever else. And I'm indifferent towards them. I don't really care about them. I know people talk about them all the time. I really could not care. But there's two kind of messages in there that's quite funny. One is that if they just didn't, preach what they're saying, no one would talk about them anyway. And then two, the media that's been covering it has like been lapping it up, but also they take the piss out of them as well during the episode, because there's an entire scene where Kyle is talking about them and all the guys are like, why are you talking about them? It's like, we do not care. And then he like goes silent for a minute and then he talks about them again and they all leave. And it's like, that's what it is as well, because the media is putting so much attention on them. You're also part of the problem. So by definition, it's a very smart episode.
Oh yeah.
It's a good start to the season. If anything, we've had Kanye West so far. We've had the Prince Harry and Meghan. So a lot of punching bags coming on. I'm expecting. I've already put bets on with my friends where I'm like, I expect Butters to join Hustlers University,
yes,
which is Andrew Tate's project. So I'm definitely sure that there's something like that's going to come along down the line. So, no, as I said, my recommendation is South Park. I can't preach it enough. It's, for me, the greatest TV show ever made. It has withstood the test of time compared to Family Guy, American Dad, Simpsons. It is by far superior. And I say that very much because, like, you can't base Simpsons just on the first 10 seasons. It's great TV, fantastic TV, but it fell off a cliff like no one could ever imagine. And South Park has continued to go strong throughout since then. So South Park, recommend the episode. Go and watch it. You'll find it funny. I thought it was hilarious, very smart.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll wrap up here. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, as I ask again, if you are new here, do consider dropping us a subscribe, turn on notifications, like, and share with your friends. It helps you keep up to date with content of our channel. We are now at 1,000 subscribers. Obviously, it might come down and up depending on who does what on our channel, but we're pretty much there. And as I said, 70% of the traffic of this channel does come from people who aren't subscribed. So if you are tuning in regularly here, do consider dropping a subscribe. It just helps you support our channel, if anything. No other spiel I'm going to give here. And then also, StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. So it's available on iTunes, Apple Music. It's available on Spotify. It's available on everything. So you can check us out there. You can download episodes. You can rate them as well. But that's us done for now. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So we're going back to our normal schedule. Obviously, as I said, we had a one-off special in between this, and it's kind of been, back and forth. But as I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks then. And in between then, there's a lot of stuff on the channel. So do check it out. Working on different little projects. Life After Strange, I will try and get back on this month. It's, the Achilles heel at the minute for me, but hopefully we'll work on it. And I've got other projects I'm going to try and work through as well the next couple of months and across the year. So do stay tuned. There's a lot of content coming to this channel. Until then, take care. We'll see you later.
Peace.